Alright, so it's time to get some work done. I got my Trump mug with some coffee in it. That's good. Okay, so I got this light working. I got this light working. Oop. Yeah, okay, it works. And then I got this one working, so I had to replace two of these, and that one's the original, might get replaced too. I have some better lighting coming in the mail from eBay, but basically, this is going to be a pretty good spot to work. So now, I'm getting tired of coming home and doing nothing all day because I don't have the good lighting. So here's like where my engine is right now, and I gotta get it cleaned up and assembled. So I'm just reusing what's original. I had plans on buying some better pistons and bushing these rods for floating pins, but I'm just not going to do it because I can't afford it. So what I did do is when I took it apart, I had two pistons that were in bad shape and I didn't want to reuse. They're kind of like melted a little bit. So I just bought two 360 Magnum pistons and rods already, just off of eBay that were just out of another engine that somebody was parting out. So basically, I'm not worried about it. Same part, essentially. It's going to be balanced fine and everything. I'm just going to throw it back together. So with pistons, whether you're using an electric wire brush or a manual one, you can wire brush the surface on the top with electric or whatever you want to do. You're not going to ruin anything here. You don't want to do it here on the sides. You don't want to scratch the sides up. And what you got to do too is, in order to clean the ringlands up, you remove one, and it's got to be the top one because you want it to be the square one. And then what you do, give me a second, is you break it, and you can use it as a tool. So give me a second. Okay, so you can wrap part of it with some tape to make a little handle out of it. And what you're going to do is you're just going to put it in the hole like this, in the groove here, and just get all that carbon right out, like that. So you can save this. You can use both sides, make a tool out of both sides. Make sure you're not using the broken side, and you can use this for 1 and 2, and that's the best thing to use, plus it's free. Okay, so I've made a couple of them, and I'm going to put them away so I don't lose them. And since I have both these pistons right here, I want to take a second and look at these. So right here is a 5.9, and right here is a 5.2. So you can look at them. The 5.2 looks like a nicer piston, honestly. I like the 5.2 a little better. Look how big the rings are. It's kind of a stouter and looks like a beefier piston to me. So what Chrysler did here was Chrysler uses the same rod on all the small blocks, on all the LAs, I guess the A's and the Magnums. So it's all the same rod, same length. So when they made the 360, what they did was, it's a longer stroke, so they put the pin further up to the top. And that means that this had to bunch together a little bit. They had to bunch these together in order to get it to fit. Also, okay, so the 318 is a short stroke, which gives it, the piston has a slower speed, okay? The speed is slower moving up and down for the RPM because it's a shorter stroke, so at 3,000 RPMs, this doesn't have to really go as fast because it's a short stroke, okay? And then for this one, this is a long stroke, so it's going to be a lot faster. So at 3,000 RPMs, this thing is zinging along a lot quicker than that 318 is. And that's why you can bring a 318 or a 302 or whatever, a small, 327 Chevy up to like, some people can build them to be like, 7,000 or higher RPMs. hard to do with a long stroke. But also these small little rings, which I don't really like that much. I think I see a lot more blow-by in like 5.9s than I do 5.2s. I don't really like these rings too much, but it's less friction. So this has less friction and allows it to travel a little bit faster in the cylinder. 5.9 has this this nice little pocket right here. It's an indent. It's better than what they have on the 360. The 360 is just all the way around, and I like this one better. What's also nice about the 360 is it allows you to have extra clearance. So you're looking at about 90 thousandths of an inch right here. So that plus the head gasket, you're looking at a pretty good distance for clearance. I'm going to get busy cleaning these things up. I'm using all the parts over. I'm using the bolts over, everything over, unless I find something that's bad with them. And then we're just going to put them in. So one thing I want to talk about real fast is, okay, the first time I built an engine was a 440, and I got a rebuild kit from Summit Racing, and back then it was like under $500, and I got everything I needed to rebuild the engine with bearings and forged pistons. Okay, it was like a really good deal, but I didn't know much about rebuilding engines, and the pistons came and it was like a race set, right? But I figured, well, they're all race sets because it's Summit, right? So I had a very, very, very slick piston, and it had no cross hatching. It was like a shiny finish. I guess it was for like drag racing or something like that. I'm not really sure, but it didn't really have anything to hold oil right here. So whenever I rebuild an engine, because of that engine, I always think about like putting a little bit of a knurl or something like that right here just to retain the oil. And this one looks like it's got some scratches in there, and that actually might help to retain the oil. But it's also kind of just like a semi-rough finish. It's not slick. Because I took the head off that 440 after a while, after I put a few miles on it, just to see what it looked like. It was my first engine. And on the cylinders, on the skirt sides, the cylinders were shiny. So on this side was shiny and this side wasn't. So I knew something was up. And the piston should have had something to hold oil. Sometimes they put like a coating. Sometimes they put like some cross hatching. I've been tempted into just, scratch something in there. I'm not going to do it. But these are original pistons. The bore looked fine when I took it out, when I took it all apart. So I think I'm going to end up just putting it back the way it came because, it's factory equipment. But that's one thing you got to think about when you get a rebuild kit that's claimed to be a race kit. You got to think about if it's a race kit and if it's built, you got to see what it's built for. Is it a race kit? I mean, it's hard to say, like, what the piston's built for, but if it was intended for, like, drag racing or something like that, where the engine is going to be taken apart periodically, you can rehone it. That's one thing. If it's got a slick surface right here and you want to drive it on the street, maybe even your daily driver, you're going to want to put some kind of knurling or something like that in here. Doesn't have to be very big, but do something to retain that oil so it doesn't just get washed away. So anyhow, I'm going to start cleaning these things up, and then we're going to assemble it. All right, in order to finish this job up, quick and easy, I'm going to have to make my vise great again. So I have the vise over here kind of like broke apart. I got a couple tools and supplies here. I'm going to weld it up. Okay, so if you ask me, that's pretty great. I welded it up. I welded some hangers here, some grips. So what we have here is a scrap pile vise and stand. We got a big old brake drum, a brake caliper, an axle. This is something my boss scrapped out. Is remember those things that were like an overdrive system that you put up next to your differential? Well, I don't know. Guy came in and said just throw it out, so I saved that from it. That was like the early 90s right there. I remember when that was designed. And then we got a nice vise right here. Look at that. Make my vise great again, and it's gonna have to go dark. Dark MAGA. Okay, like I said, I'm biased, but that's pretty great. So now I can get some more work done and have something to hold for those pistons. Okay, so got these things cleaned up. They're looking pretty good, it's fine. I made a little bit of a nick, you probably can't see it, right where my thumb is, right there. Made a little bit of nick right there. And I cleaned it up with a little razor blade, because with metal, if you make a dent in metal, it expands back. That's basically what knurling is. When you knurl something, you make little dents in it, and then the metal goes both ways. It goes in and it goes out. So I just took a little razor blade and cut off the little edge that it made. And I think they're fine. So I went to Chabot College for a little while, and I learned about metallurgy in class. And basically, if you have a chunk of aluminum, like a large chunk, and you want to harden it before you work with it, I was doing like machine tool stuff. One method is to just leave it outside. Leave it outside in the elements for a couple of years, if you have the time for it. This is what happens at train yards and stuff. You'll drive by train yards and things will just be sitting out all year long for like, sometimes like 10 years, right? And then basically, when summer comes along, it expands. And then when winter comes along, it retracts. And then every day it goes back and forth. So over a course of years, when it's going to expand, when it's hot, out here it gets to 120 degrees sometimes, and it's hot. Anything in the sun you can't touch it. It's hot. It expands. After a couple of years, it'll expand less. And in the winter time, it'll retract less. Where it was going like this and like that, now it's just going like this and like that. And it gets hard. Okay, you work out the metal, and it becomes, the molecules and stuff, I don't know, I didn't pay attention too much in class, but anyway, it becomes tighter, okay, in the lines. So, same thing happens to a piston. Now, this is just a cast piston. I bought it from a person who worked for the city, and he used the truck. And he said that this truck was used and abused because it was a fast truck. They said that it was a pretty fast truck, so everybody just hot rodded it and all that kind of stuff. So, these pistons are not as strong as forged, not even close, and not as strong as the hyper, whatever they call them. But it's getting closer. So what happens to cast pistons is with detonation stuff, the lands, when you have a little groove here for the ring, it's called a land. So this right here is the top land, will crack on detonation. I would have liked to have put better pistons in this, but mostly for the compression, because I can get a taller piston. You measure from the eye to the top, and what you want to do is get a longer measurement for more compression. Okay, so, but the thing is, this is probably a 9.1 to 1 compression ratio, and I'm going to be doing some head work on the combustion side, so it's going to turn into a 9, and it's just not going to have the issues that you typically have when you have detonation. It's going to be low. I can get the advance. You know, I can advance it a lot. It won't matter too much. I'm just going to be using a small AVS like 650 CFM carburetor. It's not that big of a deal, but it just would have been nice. You know, like when you build stuff, you want to build it, right? Okay, so also I told you earlier about how I'm always afraid of not oiling the sides, and don't try this, but I'm willing to try it. I just took some 80 grit emery cloth and just scribed, like, you know, I didn't sand it, I just scribed some cross hatches in it. And you can't even feel it, except it's nice and rough, and it's going to have some spots for oil to just hang out in. I don't know if it's a good idea, but it's my engine, and I'm going to build it the way I want to. So this is pretty much done. I got to clean them up. One kind of strange thing about a 360, at least the Magnum engines, is they're all 4, because a 4 has a point. So that's basically a 4, I guess. It points right there, so they just use a 4, I guess. So wondering how you figure out which is the front and which is the back. It looks like that's the indicator right there. It's getting kind of late in the day, so tomorrow I got to clean these up. I have good bearings for them, and just inspect them real quick. This is a good time to inspect, you know, your rods, if they're bent, everything. So when I put this together, I have 2 pistons from another motor that I bought off eBay, because 2 of them were kind of melted and I didn't want to use them. And the rest are from the engine. Now, a lot of people swear up and down that you need to put the engine back together the way it came. So when you take it apart, you need to, you know, there's a number on here. You can look for the number. I just can't see the number right now, but when you clean it off, there's a number on each rod, right? Okay, that's important. Like, it's not important to me for this build, but it's important if you are going to take an engine apart, look at it, and see if it's good, and then you say, okay, I don't want to do anything to it. We're just going to put it back together. The bearings look fine, especially if you have like a rod that might be slightly bent or something like that, but the thing's been running fine and you just don't want to rebuild it. Yeah, put it back exactly how you took it apart. But for me, I'm changing everything. I didn't grind the crank, but the crank's fine. I polished it. I got all new bearings. It's going to go back in just whichever way. Plus, I'm flipping the pistons around. So, flipping the pistons around, which is a trick that I've been dying to do on one. It's going to make it so I don't want to turn these pistons around on the rod. I'm just going to use the other hole. So, they don't have to go back in the same hole. That's kind of just an old superstitious belief. And I'm going to build this thing just, you know, the way it's going to go together. Just going to throw it together. And but it's getting kind of late in the day. You can see the sun's kind of going down. And I'm going to pick it up tomorrow. So I'm going to assemble this tomorrow. I should get that video out to you pretty soon. So I say thanks for watching. And tune in next time.